Alrighty, we have quite a few books to talk about this month, so let's just dive right in. Welcome to my January reading wrap-up. I'm going to be talking about the 8 books that I read this month, which was a really good reading month for me, not only number-wise, but also quality-wise. I feel like the books that I read, I just genuinely loved, and I feel like I'm kind of narrowing down on my specific book taste and the books that I know I'm going to love. So without further ado, let's just dive right in. The first book that I read is actually not out yet as of this video. I think it comes out in March, I believe, but it was Promise Me Sunshine by Cara Bastone. I luckily got an ARC, so an advanced reader copy, and I read this on my Kindle, and let me just say, I ended up rating this 4 stars. I really fell in love with it. During different parts of the story, I feel like it went up a little bit. Actually didn't ever fall lower than a 4 star. I feel like it could have gone up higher. But once I finished reading it, I was very happy with the 4-star rating. This is a romance book about our female main character, Lenny, who is going through grief. She had a very tragic loss in her life, and she's really trying to just live with that, overcome it, and get through it. And so she ends up meeting this guy who together they form a friendship, basically attempting to help each other get through their respective bouts of grief and engage in their healing journey together. The romance itself was so tender and heartfelt. I just really felt myself getting butterflies when our male main character, I think his name was Miles. Yeah, Miles. He was just super sweet and such a sweetheart. Like, I just really liked him as a male main character. And I feel like I saw a lot of growth in both the female and our male. So in both Lenny and Miles, I feel like they grew individually, but together as well. I could see their chemistry just bouncing off the walls. Like, they just were very convincing. I think Cara did an amazing job of making us really believe in their specific romance. I also really liked that we talk about, I mean, this book takes place in New York City, which is always a plus for me. There's a camping trip in it, there's a wedding, there's just so many things in here that you like want to picture in a romance, in a romantic little building of a relationship. So I feel like that definitely added a few extra bonus points. There was also a little cameo if you've read this author's other book, Ready or Not. So if you read that book and really enjoyed it, I absolutely think you should pick this one up and read it because I do think you will like it. In my opinion, I feel like I liked both of her books about the same level. I really enjoyed both of them. I can't wait to see what else she writes. I will definitely be excited and ready for whatever else she comes out with because I was very happy with both of her books. So it was a great way to start off not only January, but the year. The next book that I read was another romance, and it was Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. This has been sitting on my TBR for over a year now, I think, and I don't know what took me so long to read this. I rated this 4.5 stars, which is kind of crazy for me because this is kind of a young adult romance, so YA. I usually try to steer away from YA just because to me, there can be sort of level of maturity that isn't there sometimes. It can be a little cheesy, and I just want to read about like adults. But let me just say, when I do picture like my perfect YA romance novel, this is it. It had everything I wanted. It was super nostalgic of that just high school, first love, friendships, drama feeling that you just crave sometimes. And it was still very funny without it being too cheesy. I also found the female character Liz to be a little bit, I mean, she doesn't make the right decisions all the times, but it was fine because she is a high schooler. She's a high school senior. So, you know, she can get away with that. And it wasn't decisions that I feel like were too out of the ordinary for a high school senior. Also, what I really loved about this is, of course, Mr. West. Our male main character in this book is such a green flag, especially for being in high school. Like, I was left in awe. Like, he is a guy that I would picture in an adult romance book, and I just cannot wait. I believe there's another book after this one with the same similar story of our 2 characters going to college, which is really exciting. I cannot wait to pick it up. I definitely really enjoyed this, and this was my first Lynn Painter book as well, and I'm telling you, I really enjoyed it. I loved it. It really had me surprised. I was pleasantly surprised with a YA novel. Had the perfect amount of teenage angst and tension. There's also so many mentions of really popular rom-com movies that now I feel like I have to watch because I've only seen like a couple of them, and I like how each chapter begins with a quote from a special, not a special, but like a specific rom-com. Like, for example, When Harry Met Sally, a woman friend. This is amazing. You may be the first attractive woman I have not wanted to sleep with in my entire life. Like, I just think it's so cute and something that makes this book kind of stand out. Perfect, no notes. Really enjoyed this book. Next up is an audiobook that I listened to, and it was Beartown by Frederick Bachman. This was my first Frederick Bachman book, which is funny because I actually had started a different book from him earlier in the month and I just couldn't get into it. I did end up finishing it, so I will talk about it in a little bit, but this one, I just ate it up. It was on audio. It was actually one of my favorite audiobooks ever. Actually, my favorite audiobook. I just could really visually picture it. I ended up rating this 4.5 stars. I thought it was great. I do feel like I was misled about this book a little bit because from the things that I heard, it is about a junior ice hockey team, and this town of Beartown is a town that is kind of their whole identity is this junior ice hockey team. So they put a lot of effort, money, resources into the team, and something tragic happens, or that's at least what I heard. So in my head, I was kind of picturing, you know, something devastating and death and all this stuff. And I was literally blindsided by what actually happens. Nonetheless, my jaw was still on the ground. I was still so surprised. And overall, this book is definitely about the town, about the individual characters trying to get through this tragic instance that really kind of leaves everyone in a murky situation, especially one of our main characters, honestly. And I really enjoyed the way Frederick Bachman just wrote each character. I feel like I was fully immersed in each character. We get a few different point of views, and I just feel like I could see exactly what they were feeling. Each character also has their own sort of individuality, and none of them were more important than the rest. I feel like they all had a significant portion to the entire story and sort of theme overall. It definitely opens your eyes to the amount of just ego and what happens when one person gets a little bit, even just a little bit of power. Like, it just is sort of sad, but overall, probably a commentary on small towns and just how they work. And yeah, I don't really know what else to say. It really left me surprised. Like, I did not ever know where the story was going next, and the end, I really enjoyed the end. I like how he kind of wrapped it up, although this is part of a series, and I do actually have the second book in the series on hold at my public library, so I am planning on continuing the series and just kind of seeing through these characters' stories. Yeah, I think this one is a book that I'll definitely be thinking about a long time, and I can absolutely see why it is super highly recommended. Next book that I read in January was Blue Sisters by Coco Mellors. This was actually a book of the month pick from, I think, December or sometime last year, so I finally got around to reading it, and I ended up rating this 4.25 stars. It was such a solid read. I really enjoyed it. This is about 3 sisters who come together after the 1-year anniversary of the tragic death of their other sister. So it was 4 total, 1 of them passed away and 3 remained. So that's why they're all on the cover here. And also their last name is Blue, so that's where the title comes from, which I was kind of not confused, but like when I saw why the name is Blue Sisters, it's because literally they're the Blue Sisters, like that is their last name. Each sister has such an impactful story. They're all so different from the other, but still I felt like I could see myself in each of their shoes. I don't know why I said that like that, but I could see myself in each of their shoes. Their decisions, you know, obviously they're not perfect characters, very much flawed, but they're just very realistic and raw and going through something that nobody wants to go through, of course, and trying to find the balance of grieving on your own, but trying to lean on family. And I think the author did a really good job of kind of towing that line and showing just the implications of death. Definitely very character driven. If you're looking for kind of a plot heavy book, then I wouldn't recommend this one. But if you want a book where you can get immersed in your characters and really just see 3 different women trying to live and struggle with grief and family, friendships, everything, then I definitely recommend this book. I really enjoyed it, and I'm very happy that I chose this as one of my book of the month picks. In my opinion, honestly, no sister's POV was less interesting than the other. I feel like they each had their own individual battles and problems that they were going through, and I was always kind of just ready to read the next chapter because it alternates POVs. There were definitely also multiple jaw-dropping moments, which was very surprising. But our 3 sisters are Avery, Bonnie, and Lucky, which those names, I love those names. So obviously, highly recommend. This was one of my favorite books that I read this month, honestly. It was just really well written and I loved it. Next up is A Man Called Ove. A Man Called Ove by Frederick Bachman. This is a book that I started it like in the very beginning of January, and it took me, I think, over half a month to finish. I don't know why. I don't know if it was me. I don't know if it was sort of a book slump. I don't know if it was the actual book itself. But overall, I ended up rating this 3.5 stars. I still feel like it was a really good book. I just feel like maybe it didn't personally hit me, or I wasn't able to personally really attach with all of the characters. Ove himself is the main character, and he's kind of this grumpy old neighbor, and then he gets some very boisterous, loud neighbors who move in next to him, and he kind of just has to deal with that. But I thought it was very fascinating the way Frederick Bachman just writes. This one, since I actually got to like physically read the book, I could really see where quotes and his writing style kind of comes to be very unique. I just feel like, I don't know if his writing style is for me. I feel similarly to Sally Rooney's writing style, which I've read I think 2 of her books, and it's not for me. So I don't know if this is also completely for me. Like I did mention though, I am going to continue the Beartown sort of series and see how that kind of plays out, because I did like that book better. Overall, this book was still really good. You get to learn about Ove, you get to learn about his past, his traumas, his grief, why he is the way that he is. And overall, you do honestly end up falling in love with him, because you do just sympathize with him and you empathize with him, and I could see myself in him, honestly, which I feel like I said this in a reading vlog when I was in Europe. I started reading this book and I was like, I don't know why people hate him. Like, I can see the world the way that he does, which I don't know if that's a red flag on me. Beautiful story, but for me, I feel like it just didn't flow. Again, I don't know if it was because I was picking it up, putting it down for long periods of time. So again, might be me, might be the book itself. I just felt myself being kind of disinterested, even though the bones of the plot were really strong and good. Again, not too sure what happened there. Maybe it's his writing style, maybe it was a me problem. I'm gonna test it with continuing the Beartown series. I do still recommend this book because I think the actual plot and the overall message of the story is really strong. Next up is, I think, my favorite book of the entire month. 5-star read. It goes to The Favorites by Lane Fargo. This left me in awe. I finished this in 2 days. Completely addicting. I could not put it down. This is the biggest book that I read this month. It's not that big. It's like a 500 pager. Actually, no, it's less than 500. It's like 400 pages. So it's not that long, but it's the longest book that I read. I finished this in 2 days. I think I read this the quickest. It just left me in a book hangover. If you like Daisy Jones and the Six with these sort of interview style questions, you're gonna love this. If you love just even the chaotic energy of Daisy Jones and the Six, you're gonna love this. Again, if you just liked that book, you would absolutely love this one. This is about 2 figure skaters who are trying to figure out how to get to the Olympics, and they go through many trials and tribulations. They have friendships, relationships, falling outs, betrayals, and I just loved it. It was so entertaining. It's interview excerpts with people who know them and people around them, you know, people in their circle, and then interlaced with the actual story of what's going on. So I found that to be very interesting, and I found myself being super entertained, never disinterested. There was never a slow part in this book. Again, multiple jaw-dropping moments where I was like, I could not believe this is happening. I was gasping, kicking my feet, crying, screaming, throwing up, like all the emotions with this book. Our main character, Kat, I think her name is Katerina, but she goes by Kat. She's not a character that you particularly fall in love with, really, but by the end, you sort of just see like, yeah, I can see why she did what she did. Like, that is just her personality, and she had to do what she had to do, sort of thing. There were also multiple quotes in this book that I really liked and took away from. Let me see. Shoot, I don't have it on here. Something about like love. Ugh, let me try to find it for you guys, because now I'm annoyed that I don't know what it is. Hold that thought. Okay. There are lots of different kinds of love. Love like a steady, warming campfire that keeps you alive in the cold. Love like a raging blaze that burns down everything in its path until nothing but ash remains. Like, this book in a nutshell, literally. Competitive ice skating, so if you like sort of like a sports romance with lots of drama, so many complications, exhilarating premise, plot, everything, then you'll definitely like this book. And I've heard honestly nothing but good things, and that's definitely why I wanted to pick it up, and I fell in love with it. 5 stars. Like, I just had such an adventure reading this book, so I'm like, this is a 5-star read for me, because it didn't necessarily give me the 5-star feeling, but like, if all the books that I read were as entertaining, as fast-paced, as just a page turner as this is, then I want them all. Such a fun time. Next book is The 3 Lives of Kate K, which I'm actually very happy I picked up, because this is the Reese's Book Club book for January. So I always love to kind of read the books in that book club. It's also the Target book club pick, which was very interesting. And I think this was also a book of the month pick. So I kind of knocked all 3 birds with 1 stone. And I rated this 4 stars, which I feel like I still go back and forth between like 3.75 and a 4. Overall, it was recommendable. I would recommend it. I will say the first maybe 20% of the book, I was not fully invested, and I was thinking about DNFing it because I was like, what is going on here? Like, I'm not super attached to the characters. The plot was kind of not plotting for me, so I was a little bit curious as to if I should DNF it, but I'm really glad I stuck with it because then something happens and it just starts picking up and you become really invested in the characters. There's multiple POVs from people who are like really small characters, but I like that the author threw those in because they give you just a little tiny bit of perspective. I would say this is more of just a contemporary fiction. It's about friendship, includes, you know, LGBT topics. It actually also kind of reminded me of Yellowface in the sense that our main character does make some very questionable and rash decisions. And you're like, do I like this person? This person is very morally ambiguous. And I feel like that's sort of the overall theme of the book as well. I definitely found myself sort of sitting, reflecting, and thinking. So when a book is that thought-provoking, again, you kind of have to give it its stars. At one point, it just took me on a really emotional kind of roller coaster ride. I was deeply analyzing our characters and their decisions, their relationships, their choices, and just trying to understand and see them for who they are and kind of think about what I would have done in their position. A very good quote that I took from this book is, "We're all so much more and less than our best or worst moment." Like, if that's not life, I don't know what is. And then morality is a delicate ecosystem, which 1000%. So definitely really enjoyed it. If you're reading this and you're finding it to be a little bit slow, I would stick with it because I know I did, and I know I'm happy overall with the way it ended. All right, the 8th and final book that I read in January was A Thousand Splendid Suns by Khaled Hosseini. This is my second book by this author. I ended up rating this 4.25 stars. This is about Layla and Miriam who live in Afghanistan. So definitely a different world than what I'm used to and in reading, but I love that. I love the differences. This is a historical fiction novel, so it takes place, you know, couple decades back. And this author is an amazing author who wrote The Kite Runner, which is one of my favorite books ever that I definitely recommend you read if you haven't. And just one of the books that I feel like you have to read as a reader because it is just so good. I feel like I definitely loved The Kite Runner more than I loved this one. Even yet though, the story is super powerful. Layla and Miriam are two main characters, two girls living within the same vicinity, completely different life stories, and then their life stories kind of merge into something beautiful but still heartbreaking and super just powerful. And by the end, I did not find myself crying or teary-eyed, but I can definitely see how this can make you extremely emotional. I think it's a combination of the writing, the story, the plot, the love that you build for the characters. At times, I literally found myself wanting to stop reading because I was scared of what was gonna happen next. This author is just, he's scary because you don't know what's gonna happen. You don't want anything to happen to your main characters. You know something's gonna happen. Like, it's just so scary. Like, I was tiptoeing, honestly. Overall, an amazing plot that really makes you build a relationship with your characters and a love for them that is just astounding that reading can really make you feel that way. This book is extremely special. These two main characters will honestly live with me forever. I really loved them. Just strong, powerful, courageous women in a war-torn country. Like, if you liked The Nightingale, then you would absolutely love this as well. Those are all the books that I read in January. Thank you guys for sticking with me. I cannot wait to see what I read in February. I feel like that month is also going to have some very good reads in store for me. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you guys in my next video. Bye!